welcome to the April 6, 2020 council meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I apologize, I don't have a regular flag, but we have our flag here. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Perfect. All right. Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Edwards,
Here.
Hasty,
Here.
Hatsafatinos,
Here.
Houston,
Here.
Pansera,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
President Keeler,
Here.
Mayor Kearns,
Here.
Director Dvorsky,
Here.
City Attorney Kuzam,
Here.
and Director Miller.
Here. All right, next we have the approval of our regular meeting on March 2nd, special meeting March 16th. Are there any adjustments to the meeting notes? None here.
Can you see me, President Keeler?
Yes, Councilwoman Houston.
Thank you. And I think also my colleague, Mr. Pinzer, I see his hand raised too, but I'll start with mine. Pretty minor. I will email these around. I started an email, didn't quite complete it, for the March 2nd minutes. On page 5, the second line, replacing the word quality with quality of life. And also on page 5, the second line under other business, after the word tool, I'm going to add the following phrase, quote, to spread out the cost of energy efficiency and clean energy projects, end quote. And that's in place of the language which reads, so the cost is spread out and they can be energy efficient. That completes my requested edits. Again, I'll email those as well to the clerk.
Thank you. Councilman Panzera.
I have just a typo. Page 2 under the mayor's report, the fourth item. I'm pretty sure that Chuck didn't fall off the ridge. I think those were concrete chunks, not concrete chucks.
That's fine. Are you referring to the March 2nd meeting minutes, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Page 2 under mayor's report, concrete chunks.
Thank you. Are there any other edits? Seeing no further edits, I will accept any motions.
I'll move to approve both sets of meetings. Sorry, meeting minutes.
That's a first from Councilman Panzera and a second from Councilman Hasty. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on, we have email comments from visitors. Clerk, if you could please read the names and subjects for the comments from visitors.
Yes, we have received 5 emails. Each of these will be included with the minutes. The first email is from a Dr. Jeffrey Richards. The subject is thoughts on Airbnbs. The second email is from Jane Byrnes. The subject is on continued flooding. The third email is from John Wagner. The subject is comments from visitors should not be limited to emails. The fourth email is from Steve Reynolds. The subject is Ohio budgetary implications of economic downturn. And the fifth email is from Elizabeth Toman, and the subject is about the Grandview Parade.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone who has not received a copy of those emails?
I was just talking with Brian about sending my stuff to my regular email address. I'm having a heck of a time with the Grandview one, so I have not reviewed them yet.
All right. Thank you. We'll make sure those get sent to you. If you could email Leilani with the address you would like those forwarded to, so we can make sure that you are able to review those. Thank you. Moving on, we'll move to council committee reports. Finance.
No report.
Thank you.
Other than I'd like to thank Megan for her provide for us.
Thank you. Moving on to planning and administration.
No report.
Thank you. Recreation services and public facilities.
No report.
Thank you. Safety.
No report at this time.
Thank you. Economic development.
No report at this time.
Rules and productivity.
No report.
Thank you. Council liaison reports. I have not listed this to go through each one. Is there anyone that wishes to give a report? Yes, Ms. Houston.
Very briefly, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission is holding weekly, I think they're Zoom meetings, but calls, virtual meetings related to COVID-19 kind of support for responsiveness by local governments and city leaders. And I believe I've been sharing those around via email, but they're regularly held on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other reports?
I have one.
Yes, Mr. Councilmember Edwards.
So I'm the liaison to the MORPC 2050 group. That group did meet virtually on March 27th. The conversation theme was around natural resources as an asset to your community. We received updates from MORPC, Franklin County Soil and Water, and from the City of Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan. We heard about a range of issues. A few that I would highlight for you is in the update from MORPC, they're holding quarterly energy academies. They just did have one March 11th. The other three will be held on June 10th around equity and health, in September around a solar toolkit, and in December around planning and financing. Those are for local officials. And then just a note in Franklin County Soil and Water, they covered a range of issues from stormwater program management, green infrastructure, and the impact of climate change on communities. Did have some information that they shared with us, and I'm happy to share that with council and anybody who'd like to receive it.
Great. Thank you for that update, and thank you for getting us all on board with 2050. We appreciate that. All right. Anyone else? No. All right. We will move on to the mayor's report. Mayor Kearns.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? I'm seeing nodding. You know, it's really nice to be back here with you. I wish we were in person. I actually missed you all, and appreciate your willingness to just hustle and get this done the only way we can. And I want to thank Brian Lee, Director Lee, for facilitating this in very short order and getting us really able to, when possible, be remote and get our workforce who can work remotely set up very quickly and train them with minimal disruption. We have a lot to be grateful for here. I think staff has been tremendous. I sent you all a report about right around the time the first stay-home order went into effect, and we now are extending that, of course. Again, I keep coming back to the idea that city government is what we do is public safety. We are all essential. We are delivering essential public services. We can't not operate, and it's really critically important that we maintain capacity to operate. And that is what we have been focusing on over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, knowing that this thing is coming and it's probably going to be with us for a while. And there's a lot of unknowns in the environment. The department heads were asked, as you know, to really provide plans to scale down operations, preserve resources, and now we are looking even deeper into that going forward. The changes that you all know about, programs are suspended, facilities are closed, those are all in place. We are ramping up in the service department. We did recycling. We did a recycling run today. I think it went very well. I haven't heard a full report. And we'll do yard waste next Monday. And for the time being, we're going to continue an adjusted schedule to, again, maintain continuity, maintain capacity to serve, and continue delivering those essential services. We've got to keep people well. And for the service department in particular, some of the changes to interacting with other service crew members are fairly dramatic. And so everybody's doing really well with that. Let me just start. Well, I'll start with service since I started talking about that first. But I really wanted to give fire and the fire department a shout. Let me finish talking about service though. Street program went out to bid, came in 1.094 million, which is under the 1.1 million that was budgeted. We will be going through that, and the bids will be tabulated the next week, but we will be taking a very hard look at that. All department heads are looking at how we can make adjustments to expenditures that were planned this year. And service is one department that we'll be having a lot of meetings with, and we hope to come back to you next month with very concrete and very well thought out comprehensive plan around what we're proposing to do and what we're actually already doing to preserve our very precious resources. It's important to remember that none of the departments is an island. They all work together. This administration is very committed to working together and understanding the big picture here. And I think that prioritization of what are the things we really need to do this year versus what can be deferred or scaled down in scope we're going to take that approach, as opposed to every department is an island. I'll go back to fire. Of course, they have incident command over this very serious public health situation that we're in, and they are dealing, as our police, with the front lines of perhaps ill or desperate people. And the fire department's also integrated in the regional emergency medical, in the state emergency medical, emergency services departments. We have, as we've told you, we've got, at this point, we are doing okay with our workers on PPE and masks and such. We hope that continues. There's certainly not a surplus of that going around. Everybody's taking their temperature. Very resourceful department. Medic Robert Stultz, I don't think he's even been with us a year, came up with an ingenious way to clean the medic and really save time, energy, money, sort of, I would say, MacGyvered a rig to get in and out very quickly. And we're now trying to extrapolate that system to other departments. So I'm very appreciative of the philosophy that everybody's taking to really make this work and do the right thing. Also coming out of the fire department, it's known, I think, that there's a critical shortage of blood. We are hopefully having a blood drive at the Grandview Center May 5th, Tuesday, May 5th. Get that on your calendar. It'll be noon to 6. And at this point, as far as we know, it'll go forward. They do need some access to the building. It's, of course, we're not doing programs now. We in all likelihood won't be at full capacity then. So I'm pleased to report that we're really taking steps to help the region and the state there. Police department, Chief Starnes really transitioned very well into his role. I think the man was born to be a police chief. If you know him, he's been fantastic. And we've got 2 officer trainees. We would have had 4 swearing-ins tonight. We thought it would be too difficult, awkward, and really sort of anticlimactic to do it online. But in addition to Chief Starnes, we have 2 new officer trainees, Officer Diaz, Officer Siebenek, and we also have promoted Ryan or Zach Skurlock to the sergeant role. Police department's been fantastic with both outreach to the community. They are very, very engaged in talking to people in the community, keeping an eye on compliance with the stay-home orders. Generally, we've got very good compliance in the community. It is raising some novel issues. It seems like there's something new every day, but the police has been very helpful in both, doing some little video PSAs as well as talking to residents and really just supporting the organization with their outreach, as has the fire department. If you looked at the report, there's some very important arrest, conviction, sentencing that has happened this month. I won't go into those details, but they're some of the most heinous crimes that we've had in recent years. Moving on to the building department, also adjusting very well. Again, the nature of what all of us do is very face-to-face. They are doing permits, really scaled down with any sort of processing of permits or any sort of building issues. We are doing a limited amount of inspections, but even those are, again, very minimal and must be uninhabited buildings. And I think, new construction only. They support, and I'm not actually sure why from the last administration. It may be just that I guess it has to do with, restaurant inspections and that sort of thing, but they support the Board of Health. We do have a local Board of Health. As you know, I appointed 2 new members. One's an actual member and the other one's really a non-voting ex officio member. But we met last week, had a very good meeting. Joe Mazzola, the health commissioner for Franklin County, is actually ex officio on our Board of Health. He does attend all the meetings. He's been a tremendous source of both support and I guess to the extent we've had enforcement questions, he's been very available and extremely supportive and really wonderful. We do get on those, Ms. Houston mentioned the calls. We are on those calls every week with with MORPSI and CAMA, which is the Central Ohio Mayors and Managers, as well as the Health Department, as well as many others. The Board of Health continues to be a great resource to the administration, to the community, and I welcome their involvement. And they're all very committed and take it very seriously, as we have to. Finally, just want to mention parks. You've noticed we haven't closed down our parks. We did open Wallace Gardens on a very limited, with a lot of cautionary signage and instructions. We have closed playgrounds, but the parks are open. We are getting questions about capacity and how much utilization is too much, and we'll have to continue looking at that as time goes on and the weather gets warm. We've closed basketball courts because of people gathering. It's really been, I think, county, at least citywide in Columbus and perhaps in the county. And I see your question and I'm almost done. We have not closed tennis courts yet, but it may be coming. We are starting to get complaints about that. The game is obviously played at a distance, but there are a lot of people gathering on the courts, especially the ones at McKinley. And finally, the question everybody wonders, is the pool going to open? I think the answer is, we don't know. I don't think we're optimistic that we will have a full season if it opens, but we are, continuing to assess that, possibility we won't have a Memorial Day parade and all those sorts of things. But, look, this is how we have to adjust to the times, and we've got to be safe. So Ms. Hatzafatinos, I see you had a question, and hopefully it's not you saying that you didn't hear a word I said.
No, I heard everything you said, but Melanie is gone. And she sent a text message to me that she's frozen. So.
Well, I think we'll probably, Ms. Keeler will probably take a pause here and let her get back on and resume.
Yes, we'll take a pause, and I've asked Ms. Houston to use call-in only if that would be easier for her internet connection.
Ed, are you giving us a scenic tour?
Henry was running around outside.
That was our second inning stretch.
Does anyone else want a beverage? I'm gonna go get a ginger ale.
Anthony, you want to just bring a drink over here and come sit on the front porch with me?
Yeah, Ed, what do you want?
Something brown on ice.
All right, ice or no ice?
Choice.
Here we go.
All right, we have Miss Houston back with us. Yay, thank you. Mayor Kearns, if you have anything else to add to your report.
No, that's it. Thank you. Any questions? I'll try to answer them.
All right, are there any
Can you-
questions? Are there
This is-
questions from members?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Councilmember Houston.
Unfortunately, I lost some chunk of that. So if this is a repeat, you've already addressed it, Mayor, just feel free to say so and I can get the report offline. I just wondered if there was any kind of checking in that we're doing of seniors in the community. And if the Board of Health, our Board of Health, I know there was a meeting this past Monday, I think, March 30th, if there were any specific recommendations that our Board of Health members had separately from all the amazing work that you all are doing, because I did catch a portion of the report and I really appreciate all that you're doing. I know you're working extremely hard, so thank you.
Yes, we are checking in on seniors to the extent we can. We've got one rec department person who's very engaged with that population, has actually invented a lot of new programs, essentially, keeping a lifeline and, encouraging people to do wellness activities and doing, I would say, informal wellness checks, and certainly can help people get in touch with emergency medical fire department if needed. I think generally people are in good spirits. The Department of Health, the Board of Health, had we had a very extensive report last Monday from Commissioner Mazzola of Franklin County. The stuff changes daily, to be honest. They started talking about masks, and at that point there was no recommendation, and now there is a recommendation. And what we're doing is really trying to get out the most current information to the community on a several times a day basis, while understanding that we really have to get community information out, really importantly, to tell people what we're doing about, for example, the recycling schedule and basic operations and safety services. So we're really trying to balance all those things and get, I speak with, again, the health department. I don't know if you heard this. I speak with Commissioner Mazzola weekly. I've spoken with him a couple times already this week since the weekend, and he's been a tremendous resource, and the Board of Health has been also very helpful in putting that in the context of our community.
Thank you. Really great.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions for Mayor Kearns?
Mayor Kearns, Ed Hasty, question for you. Are we going to do, I understand we might not, but we might not be doing it for a little while, but are we going to be doing Holloway Day again? The big
I don't think it's decided.
Spring
We did have, I guess what I didn't mention is we had a couple of rain events. One of them was a very significant rain event. And as everybody knows, those can be very disruptive in our community. And this was right after we had scaled our operations back. But we were able to do a bulk, not a bulk pickup, but a basement damage pickup like we normally do. I'm optimistic we will be able to do something, but it hasn't specifically been discussed. We're kind of going week by week, to be honest. It may be that we could turn, a recycling yard waste day into that, or do something different, or maybe the stay home order will be lifted, but it really seems like we're going to be under restrictions for a while, even though it may get lifted in May. So we will play it by ear. We understand that's a need. I would guess we had a tremendous volume today, given, it's been 3 weeks of recycling and, the first yard waste pickup, and it's only beginning. So we'll try our best.
All right, thank you, Mayor Kearns. We will move on to Director Dvorsky for the operations
Please let me
report.
know if you can hear me, otherwise I'm going to have to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Right. Excellent. I talk to department heads every day, and so I have a good perspective of what's going on with each of their departments. One of the things administration asked them to do in this month's report, and I've read all of their reports. They really do quite a good job of describing how they redeployed their staff. So you can really get a good perspective on how they're trying to accommodate social distancing. And it's an ever-changing situation, but I talk to them daily. Like the mayor says, they're in good spirits. As far as reaching out to the seniors, yes, MARTA does do that. Calls them, has online activities for some of the kids programs. You've seen there's links in the Parks and Rec report that I really enjoyed. It was different kids games, kids exercises you can do. So I think they're doing a really good job, and our staff is in good health. That's one of the things I also check on every day. And then on the budgetary side, like one of the questions that came into council, well, yeah, we're very cognizant of that. It's much on our mind. In this crisis, we look at revenues, capitals, and expenditures, as well as cash flow. You look at the changes and the delays in the income tax collections and the property tax due dates. Well, some communities are very cash strapped. That's highly sensitive to them, but I think that we'll be okay. In the same vein, the dispatches reporter is reaching out to all the communities to try to find out, if they have emergency funds and what their plans are and so forth. So in this month, we're kind of in the data collection phase, and we're talking to all the department heads, and you realize that everything is intertwined, not just the general fund, but the capitals, the streets program, everything is intertwined. And one of the things, especially for new council members, I want to remind people of is everyone should take great comfort in the fact that we have a cash reserve policy. It's the resolution we passed in Resolution 03-2016. It's Exhibit B. And one of the reasons you should take great comfort in that is that there's a section in there on financial action plan. So when people ask us, what are we going to do? We actually have structure of what we need to do according to the financial plan. Things we do if we're not at a break-even point, what measures do we take? And then if this was to be prolonged, what does the city do? Do we have specific action items? What if the reserves dip below 20%? What if they dip below 15%? Specific actions. It's not just a concept. We're committed to doing this. So I think we'll be fine. Our reserve policy also deals not just with the general fund, but also the outside funds. And when I say we'll be fine, it's not, I'm not, I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that with our reserve policies, if we do have this, starts to be prolonged, that we have a plan, we have a strategy, and we'll deal with it as it comes along. And when we talk to the department heads, it's not just financial. We are looking at how things are affected. For example, we would never take in Grandview, it's just not the Grandview way. You will never see us come up with a blanket policy where we go to each department head and say, you have to cut 15% of your budget. You have to cut 20% of your budget. No, we have the ability to dive deeper than that. We know where our revenues come from. We have a 5-year capital plan. We have a 10-year capital plan. We track what portion of our revenue budget is income tax, what portion is property tax. We do a deep dive into the data. We go way beyond what other communities just do as a universal solution. So, and we have a very strong finance team. I have high confidence in the finance team that they will sound the alarm when they need to, and that along the journey here, they will keep us informed. The administration is going to be talking to finance and all the department heads this week, and we look at the implications of cutting things. How does it affect a future program? How does it affect the south of Goodale, the Grandview Yard, or Main Street USA? So it's not just financial. We actually have a more broad-based strategy. So I think in summary, communication is the key, and I think we have a good perspective of what's going on at the various department levels. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Director Dvorsky. Are there any questions for the director? I'm seeing none. We'll move on to the Director of Finance, Director Miller. Are you there, Director Miller?
Yes, I submitted my report. It was quite lengthy this time. I included a lot of quarter and Can you hear me?
You cut out for just a second. If you could start over again, please.
Okay, yeah, I submitted my report.
Director Miller, we're still having trouble.
Quarter ended.
We're still having trouble hearing you, Director Miller. I don't know if maybe you could turn the video off and go to audio only.
On that. Hello?
Yes, we hear you now.
I don't know.
We do hear you now. Are you okay? Are you okay to proceed? Director Miller, if you can hear me, could you maybe hang up and then call back in and see if the audio only will work? There we go.
Is it better now without my video?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay. So I submitted and all the court. Bob had talked about already. Bob covered a lot. He loves his finance, so we can't together a lot, and I think it showed that we have Bob in that position and we can work together, and we both really are not concerned right now. We know that
Director Miller,
capital
you're cutting in and
expenditures, and we
out.
monitor everything.
Megan, are you able to hear me?
So right now we're doing well. Let me call in. I'll do a call in.
Okay, let's do that.
I think we lost Megan.
I think she hung up and is calling back, and we'll give her just a minute to call.
I'm here.
Oh, that sounds so much better. Thank you, Megan.
Well, I don't know what all you heard. Bob covered a lot of it already. My monthly report had a lot of quarter end information and showed you that we're kind of right in line with where we would expect to be. And I think that we're really going to see a lot of the fallout from all of this in the coming months. It's really early to tell. We're very aware that revenue is going to drop. And I'm working with Bob and Greta on, helping the departments determine what we need to cut out or scale back. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Are there any questions?
No.
I have a question.
No? Yes, Councilmember Panzera.
Megan and Bob collective, I know it's hard to extract Bob out of the finance realm, and we are actually
You can
all
never
better off.
leave.
But what kind of schedule do you anticipate being able to report on that adjustment in revenue? When will that start to be experienced, and how soon can you report on it?
I think it's going to be a couple months because already this month, in the month of April, we have record income tax numbers. So we're still collecting from the pre-COVID days. So I think it's going to take a couple of months to really get a good idea on what it's going to look like. And we're fortunate that a lot of the big employers in the city are still paying all of their employees. We haven't seen any major layoffs. So it's just really hard to tell. I think it's going to take a couple months before we see the drop.
Okay, thank you.
Can you folks hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Director Dvorsky.
Yes, the only thing I would add to that is, remember, we, meaning Megan, is going to do a mid-year budgetary review like we always do. So I'm sure that she will keep us updated between now and the mid-year, and that she'll give and her department will give a full mid-year review. So we'll have a really good perspective along the way, and also at mid-year.
Great, thank you, Director Dvorsky, for that addition. Are there any other questions for the Director of Finance? No? All right, moving on. We'll go to the City Attorney report. Director Kazam.
And I've already provided you with my report, also a little bit lengthier than usual, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the Director? Yes. Councilmember Panzera.
Joelle, could you please briefly summarize the modifications that were made to the public meetings legislation throughout the state, so that we can all be on the same page and understanding that we are meeting that expectation?
Sure.
So just as a starting point, I was asked to serve on a task force of the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association, which consisted of just a very small group of lawyers from around the state who were in regular contact with people at the Attorney General's office and the legislature. Early on, excuse me, early on, the Attorney General's office issued a letter directing communities that they could go to a non-live kind of setting. There was some concern on the part of some people, not necessarily warranted, but nonetheless, that because this was in the form of a letter, it wasn't strong enough. And so there was an effort to get the legislature to codify the changes to the Ohio Open Meetings Act so that these types of telephonic or video streamed, live streamed conferences could take place. And so that came to pass as part of what became Omnibus House Bill 197. There were lots of other changes embodied in that particular bill, but the General Assembly met on an emergency basis to expressly allow communities to modify their practices so as to permit for this type of a forum with the same notice requirements that we always have, with the understanding that this allows communities to limit access to their public buildings, many of which, like ours, house lots of people that we really are working very, very hard to keep free of any sort of potential exposure, our fire department, our police department, and so forth. That said, some community, different communities have different requirements in their charters and in their ordinances. We are in full compliance with state law as well as with our own charter and codified ordinance requirements. With respect to open meetings, we are giving the notices as required by law. We are making available as a courtesy the comments from visitors portion. We are doing what we can to continue to maintain communications with residents who have questions about what's happening in the council within the city and so forth. And in addition to the live streaming, we will continue to record the meetings and post them to the website as we routinely do. So hopefully that addresses the nature of the question.
Yes,
Great,
thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, Councilmember Houston.
Thank you. Additionally, related to that legislation, I think it was House Bill 197. I thought there was something within it relating to if city employees, maybe it was fire and police specifically, have leave, need to take sick leave or family care leave related to COVID-19, that there would be, whether it would be workers' compensation or some kind of bank for sick leave. I thought I had heard something about that, but I don't have the details and haven't researched it yet myself. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's actually not part of 197. As a result of federal legislation, there are some emergency paid sick leave and emergency paid family leave provisions that have different triggers. Our city employees are being paid irrespective of that law. There are some reduced benefits available for people for the first couple of weeks if they have certain medical conditions or a family member who has a medical condition that may result in their inability to work remotely. So far, most of our people are either able to work or are able to work remotely with very limited exceptions. So there is a specific carve out in that federal law, which is called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, that allows employers to not extend that benefit to emergency personnel, including first responders and police and fire departments, as well as healthcare. So at this point, obviously, we are in need of all of our police and fire personnel. We're working very hard to keep them well and have modified schedules to some extent to make sure that there are limited exposure opportunities. But hopefully that addresses your question, Lonnie.
Great, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Councilmember Hasty.
Joel, quickly, I don't know if I know a lot of the courts and a lot of the police around the Central Ohio area have modified some of their handling of when to take people to jail and things like that. Obviously, violent offenses aren't what I'm talking about. Just, I wanted to let you know what the status is down at the court for prisoner cases. They are currently only doing prisoner arraignments on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I'd like the police to be aware of that. Look, if they got to arrest somebody, they got to arrest somebody. But I ran into a situation this weekend where one of my clients was going to get arrested on a Saturday, would have missed, Saturday. It would have been Saturday night, Monday, Sunday night, Monday night for what was a pretty low level offense. We kind of worked it out. But I think the police need to be aware of what the modified schedule is. Somebody goes in, they're going to be in a couple days now as opposed to overnight and things like that. So I don't know who briefs them on that, whether it's you or Marty or talks to them about that.
Yeah, we've been keeping the police and prosecutor and mayor's court personnel looped in on all of those announcements as promptly as we get them.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No, so barring no other questions, we'll move on to old business. Item number 1.
Ordinance 2020-07, an ordinance authorizing the city of Grandview Heights to participate in the Columbus Regional Energy Special Improvement District Residential Program Plan, authorizing and approving the execution, delivery, and performance of a residential PACE cooperative agreement with respect to property assessed clean energy transactions in cooperation with the Columbus Regional Energy Special Improvement District and the Toledo-Lucas County Port Authority, and authorizing the Toledo-Lucas County Port Authority to approve petitions and plans for public improvements or public services submitted by the owners of real property within the city who wish to have their property added to the territory of the Columbus Regional Energy Special Improvement District and assess for the costs of such plans on behalf of the council of the city of Grandview Heights.
Thank you. Chair Hatzinos, your committee met on this, correct?
Yes, it's been some time, but we have met on it. This is the third reading. We had a wonderful presentation at the outset of this program. The documents attached and that are in the agenda are pretty pro forma. We've had some discussions on why this was Toledo versus Franklin County. Some of that had to do with federal versus state, I believe. If that's incorrect, somebody correct me. But overall, this is a good program, allows residents of Grandview Heights to streamline the process of adding energy efficient modalities to their home. I know that we have discussed in the past that the first thing that comes to mind is solar panels, but this is not the only thing that it applies to. It would apply to, I think, most other home improvement items that would be energy efficient, such as furnaces or windows. I am not a home improvement expert, so those are the first two things that come to mind. And we recommend approval of this.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to approve.
A second.
Thank you. That's a motion from Councilman Panzera and a second from Councilman Smith. Is there any further discussion? Barring no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Edwards?
Yes.
Hasty?
Yes.
Yes.
Hatzinos? Houston?
Yes.
Panzera?
Yes.
Yes.
Smith? President Keeler?
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-07 has been approved.
Thank you, everyone. I think that will be great for our citizens of Grandview Heights. Moving on to old business item number 2.
Ordinance 2020-08, an ordinance to regulate the use of residential dwellings as short-term rentals.
Thank you. Chair Hatzinos, your committee? I know there was some items up in the air. If you could update us, please.
I can update you. We have only been able to conduct one committee meeting on this issue due to the COVID situation. And so a robust discussion on this particular legislation hasn't really been able to occur in the public space. While the general spirit of the ordinance is correct in the form that it is, and I do believe just from what I have gleaned from the one committee meeting and the other council meetings we've had, that there's support for this legislation in the way that it reads. There are some mostly grammatical and technical updates that need to be made. In light of everything that's going on, I do believe that it is in the best interest to table this particular legislation to a date certain of June 1st, so that we could add an extension to the temporary legislation that we had passed before, so that the changes that need to be made to ordinance 2020-08 can be done completely, correctly, make sure all those T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and not rush it through. Further to my point, I don't know that there's a whole lot of people utilizing short-term rentals at this point in our city. We are under a statewide stay-at-home order. So unless you are in a very narrow category of essential worker that's still traveling for work or needs temporary housing, I think that most of the time that's going to be utilized in a more traditional hotel situation. The current legislation that we have, the temporary ban, should be preventing people from operating short-term rentals as it is anyway. So I don't feel like that there's any continued or increased danger to the city of Grandview Heights or our residents by tabling 2020-08 to June 1st and then continuing with our later on the agenda with an extension of the temporary ban.
Great, thank you for that update. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I have a question along those lines. Rebecca, I talked to you last week and Joel about various technical amendment ideas that, that we had. Should we just, in the meantime, now until June 1st, come up with maybe a written form of that rather than fooling with it this evening? And then, we'll have like an omnibus amendment or substitute come June 1st, something like that. What's the game plan?
I think that would be the most efficient way to it. I've spoken with Attorney Kuzam as well. And I think that most of the changes are, as we have mentioned, somewhat technical, grammatical in nature. I think that we can work with the city attorney to make these changes and then present them all as a whole when we're able to have a full meeting and discuss this, hopefully under less restrictions than we are. But if it comes to June 1st and we're still under some type of stay-at-home order, we're still meeting remotely, it would be my hope that we could at least have these changes made and written out, and we can have a substantive amendment as a whole to 2020-08 and get the legislation read and discussed at that time. I don't know that we would want to just keep delaying it any further, but as we sit here today, I think that tabling it is the best option, but of course, that would be up for vote and discussion by council.
Yes, Council Member Edwards.
I support this direction. Do want to have more robust discussion. Would part of the plan that we're discussing be to have a committee meeting on this, or are you guys suggesting that we would bring it back to a full council meeting? My preference would be, if possible, to have some committee time to be able to go over the amendments that are being suggested.
Chair Hatzinos.
Councilman Edwards, I think to answer your question, what could be done is that in the meantime, we can individually contact Attorney Kazam, and so that's still within the propriety of how council can operate. Some proposed amendments can be made in a red line form, and a committee meeting can be had prior to the general council meeting on June 1 to look over those amendments as a whole. And then if there's any further changes that need to be made to that, they could be made in committee, and then hopefully get the legislation completed in the general meeting that would occur subsequently.
Thank you. Council members, then Council Member Panzera.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, yeah, I was a little confused because I spoke with Joel this weekend or the end of last week, and I thought we'd be presenting him the amendments this evening, but I support what you're saying, Rebecca, and then we'll, you know, do all this work in the meantime up until June 1st. That sounds fine, and I do like the idea of having like maybe a short committee meeting to hammer it all out.
Councilmember Panzera, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I certainly don't have any objection to the June 1st target date, but I was also interested in council's opinion on perhaps whether the 15th would be a little bit more of a layer, so that with hopeful thoughts that we can actually meet in person June 1st, we might be able to get that finalized during that cycle, and then take the following mid-month to ratify it.
Just we would need to adjust the new business item for the date on that, if that's what council so wishes. Mayor Kearns, you had your hand up.
I simply wanted to say, if you wish to do a committee meeting, I think, you know, the administration can support the IT function, however you want to do it. I know that there is a capability of using, you know, displaying exhibits, and I think this is a trial run tonight, but, you know, we're doing all our staff meetings by video. We're getting better at it every day. So I think we can certainly support if you want to go ahead and have a committee meeting and go through, you know, the document and the red line. I'm just offering that out there if that's how you want to do it.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Houston.
Thank you. I wanted to add that I support tabling until date certain, whether that's June 2nd or June 15th. I also heard from kind of a representative of the neighbors in the Norton Avenue block, 2nd Avenue area, and that problematic property has actually been rented out on a long-term basis presently. So that was some news I wanted to share with the group as it relates to this ordinance.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just following up on what Anthony said. Actually, if we all get back to our normal lives come June, I would prefer the 15th as well, because if we're allowed to travel, I did have travel plans then. So June 15th would be preferable if we could, you know, amend that ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? Is there a motion on this table?
Move to table ordinance 2020-08
I'll second.
to date certain of June 15th. I'm sorry, June 15th.
Second.
I'll second.
That's a motion and a second by Councilmember Smith. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hasty,
Yep.
Passafatino,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-08 has been tabled until date certain of June 15th.
Great, thank you. Moving on to new business item number 1.
Resolution 07-2020, a resolution authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Grandview Heights, Ohio, and NRI Equity Land Investments, LLC, and consenting to the execution of a 9th supplemental trust indenture.
Thank you. Could either one of the directors or Mayor Kearns, could you please update us? I know there were some developments today regarding this project.
Yes, this is Joe. Well, very briefly, just shortly before the meeting, we were advised that, I believe by MORPC, that the monies that the state was planning on distributing in OPWC and other types of capital improvements funds is on hold. Budget can be decided. So we had a discussion very quickly about whether to move forward with this item of legislation or not. There is really no downside to going ahead with it, so that at the point in time that money is ready to be dispersed, we would have all of our ducks in a row. I just want to point out that excuse me, there were 2 attachments to the legislation. The first is the memorandum of understanding with Nationwide to affirm that this money, once received, will count towards the city's contributions and will not count against the city in terms of the TIF financing that is repaid with interest. And the second attachment is the 9th iteration of an indenture agreement, which changes the waterfall, the repayment schedule on the bonds to include the OPWC money, which is a loan, a low interest loan and a grant, so that those are repaid before other obligations. But again, this is now a contingency. It is not a reality until the state makes the determination that we'll receive the money. If the money is not received, that 9th version of the supplemental indenture agreement, Exhibit B, will have to be updated again to reflect what the borrowing capacity is without that. I believe it was about $4.6 million combined in loans and grants. So that's just kind of a little bit of background. We got this information literally at the 11th hour. We talked with our outside counsel about this and believe that it's probably still worth going ahead and passing this preemptively in the hope that we will receive these funds in the not too distant future.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Kearns or Director Dvorsky or Director Miller, do you have anything to add?
I actually just want to back up and just put in very plain terms why legislation is needed to begin with. Everybody here, I think, knows that there is an expansion of the infrastructure in Grandview Yard planned south of Goodale, very significant expansion, an $11 million project. There was an application in the last year to the OPWC, the Ohio Public Works Commission, for some funding assistance by the prior administration. Was made probably about a year ago. I want to say September was the deadline. It was granted, and it offsets $1.5 million in a grant and $4.6 million in a low interest, actually zero interest loan. So over half of the project. It is a project that is in the TIF. And the benefit, of course, to the city is that this offsets that amount of money from the TIF that basically makes the payoff sooner, and it accelerates the bond payoff. So it is, a substantial amount of money that, very well, I think very well conceived by the prior administration to apply for it, and the administration supports going forward. given that there's no downside. Very disappointing, but also not surprising that the state is on hold right now with their decision making. Also want to keep up hope that they will eventually revisit this and give us either the same amount or maybe proportionally less, but this would still be a great benefit. And the finance people can correct me if I said anything wrong.
No, that's a good summary, Mayor. And like Joel said, we've been talking through this all day long ever since we got the word on this, on the merits of proceeding or not. So I'm fully supportive of moving this through the process.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Smith.
In light of OPWC, the state putting this on hold, us passing this preemptively, are we going to have to amend like the indenture agreement and everything later on at a later date?
So if the money is eventually dispersed in the capital's budget by the state, there would be no change needed. If for some reason we're advised that it's not going to be dispersed, then NRI will prepare a 10th supplemental indenture agreement that would have those amounts reduced out of the total.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that Councilmember Hatzipastinos?
It is. Sorry.
Okay.
Didn't identify myself.
It's all good. Thank you. Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Houston. Panzera.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Hasty.
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Resolution 07-2020 is approved.
Thank you. New business item number 2.
Ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance to extend the prohibition of the use of residential dwellings as non-hosted short-term rental businesses until June 2nd of 2020 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is an accompaniment to our previous item of business for the short-term rentals. Because we moved it to a date certain of June 15th, I would entertain a motion to amend ordinance 2020-10 and adjusting the date to coincide with that decision. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Yeah.
This is Smith.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Councilmember Hasty.
Elle is raising her hand and has been since before the motion was made.
Sorry, who has?
City Attorney.
Oh, sorry.
Kuzam.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Joelle.
Let me suggest that you amend it to June 16th rather than 15th, because I don't want to have any, questions about whether it's the night of the council meeting or the next morning.
Yeah.
Sure. Councilmember Smith, would you like to amend your motion?
I will amend it to June 16th. So moved.
Okay. That's a first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
That's Councilmembers Hatzipastinos and AC, I think. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Clerk, please call the roll.
Houston.
Yes.
Panzera.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
Hasty.
Yes.
Hatzipastinos.
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-10 is in amended form.
Thank you.
Move to suspend the rules.
Thank you. That's a motion from Councilmember Panzera. Is there a second?
Second. Edwards.
Thank you. Second from Councilmember Edwards. Clerk, please, or is there any discussion on the suspension? Please call the roll.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yes.
Hatzafatina,
Yes.
Yes.
Houston. President Keeler,
Yes.
Resolution 2010 in amended form. The rules have been suspended.
Is there a motion?
No, hang on.
Councilmember Panzera.
Grammatical error. It's paginated to 4 pages. It's only 2 pages long.
Can
So
you repeat that,
could be
please?
Justina.
Councilmember Panzera.
Yes, I'm sorry. The pagination.
Councilmember Panzera, can you please repeat?
Anthony, your audio is frozen.
Okay, I'm not getting any indication that it's frozen. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I would move to amend the pagination as page 1 of 2 and 2 of.
Thank you. That's a motion to amend. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you,
Hatzapotinos.
Councilmember. Thank you, Councilmember Hatzapastinos. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yes.
Hatzafatina,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-10 has been amended a second time.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve as amended.
Thank you. That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hatzapastinos. Okay. Is there any further discussion? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yep.
Hatzafatina,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
President
Yes.
Keeler. Ordinance 2020-10 in amended form has been approved.
Thank you, everyone. This will help maintain status quo until the short-term rentals legislation is decided. Moving on to other business. I have no other business unless anyone else does. No? Moving on to comments from council members. First of all, I would just like to say thank you to everybody. We made it through our first council meeting. Yay! Very exciting. And I know this has been really weird and really strange, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to practice and to hold a meeting like this, and for our audience to listen in as we are figuring out this new normal. Are there comments from any other council members?
Great job running the meeting.
Oh, thank you. Big shout out to Brian Lees for helping us with everything. So, any other comments? No? All right. Well, in that case, I will adjourn our meeting and stay safe, everyone, and have a wonderful week.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
All right.